So we have the new
Okay.
V15 release where we have different ways to track time. Essentially, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So in talking to our customers, they gave us a lot of great feedback about the different ways in which they would like to track time, the different places within Salesforce that they want to track time. So with the V15 release, we're hoping to address all their concerns.
Amazing. And so, what are the new ways that you can track time, and how is it different from previous?
Three main methods to track time now in Resource Hero. So the first one I'm going to demonstrate is on the project object. So if you're a part of an operations team and you're tracking time for a client that is eventually going to be invoiced, you might want to track a little bit of detail. So in this case here on my project, I can come into our time tracking interface and I'm going to track 2 hours of billable time towards the category of planning, and I can put in a note here. So planning for next release, and I can save that. If you came back in later in the day and you wanted to track additional time, you could do so. Just put in an hour and a half. This time it's non-billable. Maybe in this case we're doing some research about SLDS 2.0. So this is the traditional way that we track time within the Resource Hero time tracking component. This manual time entry that we have, where you can put your hours, your category, indicate billable, non-billable. So this is what most of our customers are used to today. Now, the second method of tracking time would be on, and I'll demonstrate this on maybe the opportunity object. So if you think about this, you're a salesperson, a BDR, you're working on opportunities, and maybe you have three distinct buckets that you want to track time towards. In this case, we have solution development, discovery, and prospecting. And you just need a very quick way that you can log your hours and then move on to the next task. So the second method is what we call our tap tracking. And you can see here as I'm hovering over these assignments, you can see that we have these increments here, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 4 hours. So if I want to log time against my three assignments, I can very quickly just tap those to indicate how much time that I worked on each of these. And as you can see, just like that, the time has been logged. Now, one kind of cool thing about this is that these increments are not static. You can actually customize these. Each individual user can customize these. So if I were to click up here onto our settings, you can see that down the bottom here, you can actually add whatever increments that you like, depending on the type of work that you do. So yeah, that's our second method, which is our tap tracking. The third method that we have is our timer functionality. And this is one that a lot of our customers that are working specifically on cases, the support role, where they might be working on a case for 10 minutes, then jumping to a different case to work on that. They just needed a quick way that without somebody having to think about it, that they could log their time. So that's where the timer functionality comes in. And you notice here that next to our tap tracking, we have this timer icon that when I click on that, you'll see that it starts my timer and I can, go about my task, doing the work on this case. And then when I'm done, I have two different methods to actually record this. I could either click the stop icon, which will bring me into the edit screen where I can customize, I can update the hours, put in any other notes that I need to, and then save. Or I have this quick log functionality where I can click that and it'll immediately log the time that has been tracked by that timer. Now, what's really cool about this is that, like I mentioned, a lot of folks are multitaskers where you're bouncing back and forth between a couple different projects or a couple of different cases. And the nice thing about this timer is that if I were to look at all of my assignments on the home tab, you can see our timer still running here. And if I wanted to jump over to this project real quick, I could start that timer, and you notice that it automatically paused the previous one, right? And I can do that all day where I'm bouncing back and forth, multitasking across all these different projects and cases. And then eventually, at the end of the day, when I'm ready to record my time, I can very quickly come in there, record those hours, or like I said, click that stop icon, customize what is going to be logged, and then save that time. So in this case, we'll just say that was spent an hour planning, save. So yeah, those are a very quick high-level overview of the three methods. We have the manual time entry that we've traditionally have within the Resource Hero time tracking. We have the tap tracking, and then we have our timer functionality.
So essentially, it's a much more seamless way to just make sure that you're tracking all the hours correctly, nothing's getting away from you, and it's integrated into the system.
Yeah, anywhere that you can add the Resource Hero time tracking interface, all three methods will be available. So as you can see here, we're looking at time tracking on the home tab. This could be a Lightning app page. We can add the time tracking interface to opportunities, projects, cases, pretty much any custom object that a customer has in their org. We could configure this interface to work with that. And this even works within the Salesforce mobile app and the Salesforce side panel within Microsoft Outlook and Gmail.
Very cool. Okay, so it's integrated into That's I feel like a big plus. What does just really quickly, what does time tracking look like without Resource Hero? How are teams typically tracking time, and why is this such a big upgrade?
The two main ways that I see people tracking time today before they implement Resource Hero, either they've implemented something custom within Salesforce that doesn't work very well and they struggle and their team hates using it, and it's always a fight to try to get people to actually log their time, or they might be using some external application that might be available that's not integrated within Salesforce. And of course the challenge with that is that you have all of your cases, your opportunities and projects in Salesforce, and then you have people tracking time somewhere else. So there's always this headache, this hurdle of trying to get things to synchronize between each other. So with Resource Hero, native Salesforce application built within the Salesforce platform, your cases, your opportunities, your projects, they're already in Salesforce. So Resource Hero just naturally layers right on top of that and just makes it seamless and easy. And if I'm being honest, it just, we've heard this from customers, it just gives people one less excuse for not tracking their time. So it's just as easy and seamless, and we meet people where they are.
And obviously, if you're not tracking your time correctly, you're not able to bill correctly. It kind of just messes up the whole system that you have running.
Yeah, absolutely. So not just billing, but when you talk about the profitability of projects and being able to analyze, what do we plan it was going to take to deliver on this project versus what it actually ended up costing us. If you're not tracking your time and you're not forecasting your time, both of which you can do with Resource Hero, you never really truly understand what that profitability of that project is, or whether you're making money or you're potentially losing money and you don't even know it.
Right. Yeah, makes complete sense. Could we drill in a little bit more to checking out like the totals and the date navigation and just, kind of like after you're done tracking?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so you notice here, this for customers that are used to our existing time tracking interface before the V15 release, you might notice that there's a few differences at the top here. If you recall in the previous time tracker, we had kind of 3 hard-coded buttons at the top here that also display totals. We had the day, we had this week, and we had last week. You notice that we've replaced that now with this more flexible kind of toggle between day and week, and then we have the date selector. What's cool about this is that if you wanted to see what you tracked yesterday, you could just use that left and right, to go to different days. We can select a specific day if you wanted to jump to that day. And if you wanted to see the entire week, we can click on that week toggle. Now, cool thing about this is that when you select week and you select any day within a work week, it's going to show you all the hours for that week. And of course, if I expand this, we can see all the time that's been logged for that project for that week. And if I want to see last week, I can hit that left arrow to see all the time that's been logged for last week. What's really cool, this is something we can never do before. We can actually select any week that we like. So if I wanted to go back to the week of January 21st, I'm now able to see the time that's been tracked. So it's no longer just today, this week, and last week. Much more flexible in that we can navigate wherever you want to see those hours. The other kind of cool thing is that previously we were always showing actual hours. In the for day, this week, and last week, all you could see was that actual. What you notice here now is that we have a couple different options. We have actual, we have billable, and non-billable. And the fields that actually display here, the total fields, are actually customizable by the Salesforce administrator using field sets. So if you wanted to show, actual, billable, non-billable, maybe even forecast or forecasted cost or actual cost, you could very easily add those to the field set and you'll be able to see them here. And they just know it's just not showing the aggregates. These are actually clickable, where, as you can see, I'm currently selected on actual, and we can see that our the totals for each assignment are showing on the right here, representing the actual. But if I click on billable, you can see that they update, and we can see how many hours for each assignment were billable. And then if I click on non-billable, you can see where that non-billable time is coming from as well. One other challenge that we faced prior to V15 was that if somebody was working on a project, let's just say last week, and they wrapped up that work and they archived their assignment, those aggregates were no longer showing in the totals, right? So it looked like they were underutilized, that they were just relying on the totals. In this release, though, you can actually see here that it's configurable, where if you want those archived assignments to show up in your aggregates, you can do so. And you notice down here that at the very bottom, we have this, this little expandable section that says one archived assignment with time. And if I were to click on that, we can see that we had 6.68 hours towards this project that has since been archived. So, now you're, not only can you see those aggregates, but you can see the aggregates to include archived records so that your aggregates are accurate. And keep in mind, if you don't want to see that, if you want to archive your assignments and just have them drop off completely, even that is customizable. So, we talked about the settings, but if we jump back in here and just take a look here, there's a setting there for include archived assignments and totals. So if you don't want to see that, you just turn that off, and then those archived, just like we had in V14 and prior, they will no longer show there.
Interesting. Okay. So essentially, if we were to give kind of the TLDR of V15 and the time tracking release, it's going to be, and you put it in your words, but essentially it's going to be much easier to track your time with different ways to track it depending on what your preferences are, and then greater visibility into the time you actually tracked.
Yeah, I think if I had to summarize this into one or two sentences, I would say that we are trying to meet people where they are. What we found over the years is that people have different ways they want to track time. They have different use cases of how they need to track time. So we basically want to give people whatever mechanism is going to work for them. We wanted to make sure that was available to them. So like I said, if you need to get really detailed, that end of the spectrum, you have the manual entry. If you want to just very quickly log your time and move on, we have the tap tracking. And then of course, for like I said, for folks like me that are multitasking throughout the day, that timer functionality just is really nice to be able to start and stop and not have to try to mentally figure out how many minutes did I spend this particular project before I'm ready for the next one. So yeah, the summary is just meeting people where they are and just giving them a variety of options that'll work for them.
And is this going to be immediately available for everyone? Do you need to do something inside of your account to activate it?
So this will be available on the App Exchange by the time you're watching this video. So if you wanted to upgrade to the V15 release, you could do so just by going to the App Exchange and clicking that Get It Now icon. So, for folks that don't care for the totals, maybe they just want the quick time logging without having to worry about the aggregates and things like that, you can turn that total section off now, which is kind of cool. One of the things we had in the V14 and prior was the ability to show just active assignments only. So for example, if I were to go back here, this week here where we have a few assignments and only 2 of them actually have time to track towards them. Let's just say you only want to see the records where you've tracked time, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you look at this where we have just 6 assignments, but we have some customers that have 50, 100 active assignments where they're tracking time, only a few of which are active for any given day or for any given week. So what we have now, if you go into your settings, we actually have this toggle here for sort non-zero and timers to the top, which is kind of cool. So if I check that, now it will pull those ones that actually have time logged to them, maybe ones that have active timers, and you're able to see those right at the top, but everything else is still there, right? And if you needed to, find one of those assignments you haven't logged to yet, to be able to record some time, you can see them at the bottom, or if you have a lot, like I said, like 50 or 100, you can still use our search. So if I was looking for, that prospecting option, I could very quickly do that. If I click enter, it'll expand that and I could record my time. So bubbling those the active assignments to the top, that's definitely one that I think folks with a lot of assignments, where they're constantly bouncing back and forth, throughout the weeks, that's going to be a nice feature for them. Jumping back in here again, if you don't find yourself wanting to use timers, you can disable that. We have that functionality where I mentioned where as soon as you start one timer, it'll automatically stop any other timers that you have. You can disable that. So if you have a use case where you need multiple timers running at a given time, you can do that. Confirming before canceling, that seems like a little one, but there's definitely some folks that like to really hone in on the number of clicks that they have before they can do any kind of operation. So if you were going to stop a timer, it'll warn you, and if you want to turn that warning off, you have the ability to do that with that setting. And I guess the other kind of cool one for the timers, especially some companies have a requirement where they don't want people logging 0.01 hours or 0.03. So we actually have the ability for the timers to actually round the time up to an increment. So you can say that round everything up to the nearest 5, 10, 15, 30, or 60 minutes. So that way it's a little bit more consistent. And if you have that standard, you can have your team leverage that feature. But other than that, yeah, this is just the whole goal here is to try to make it as easy as possible for people to track time, giving a variety of different options, a variety of different ways they can customize the interface to work for them. And we're really excited to let people start using this.
And if anyone has issues, maybe they're trying to install it or they're just having issues getting the most out of it, they can simply go to the support page on the Resource Hero website, correct?
They can do that, or they could always email support@resourceheroapp.com. And if you'd like to jump on a call and schedule a time to walk through the changes together or walk through any of the configuration, we're always happy to schedule a Zoom and jump on and go through it together.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think a lot of people will be really excited about this, so it'll be interesting to see everyone's feedback.
Yeah, agreed.